So we're going to do some very basic techniques because we have a new student, and it's okay because we all should do basic techniques from time to time. We'll start with grab attack, which is not the most fighty looking attack, but people actually grab you in real life, and it's helpful to understand how grabbing dynamic work. But it's also a good way for us to start to learn the basic techniques. So we don't spend a lot of time doing grab stuff. We do a lot of punching and striking, but at the beginning it's better to do the grabbing because it's easier to manage the technique. So he's just going to be relaxed for the first part of this because I want to show just the basic movement. So this is Ikkyo. What I want to do is take his hand out of his position of strength and now take the balance from him and start to turn him over this way so that I can control his body and take him either to this position or all the way to the ground if I need to, or throw him. I can come down and submit, or I can just throw him down hard and fast and move away from it, which I will do that to Stephen, but that's another option, right? So if I'm here and I'm coming around and I just cut him down and then go. Most people, when they fall to the ground, don't fall the right way. I can also come in and move to here and control him. You can stand up. Stay on your feet. Okay, so I've actually used this in a street situation where I could use it as a control technique. But the guy tries to stand up, but he can't. You just give him just enough that he can move without going to the ground, but not enough that he can stand up. And I did this. I worked in restaurants for 9 years, so I had to break up a bunch of fights, and I did this to a person, and it worked really well. So it may look like a very simple technique, but if done correctly, you can take complete control of the person. So the first thing we need to do, remember Aikido, everything starts with an atemi. So get used to this kind of thing. Just throw that into your technique, wherever you're going to do the atemi. Then we're going to move in, and if he's grabbing really hard, we need to break the grip. So he grabs. I can't, as strong as you can. I can't just come up like this because he's strong here. What I have to do is come towards a weak point, which is thumb right here is a weak point. Okay, so if he's here, he's grabbing hard, I'm just going to move in like that. Then I'm going to come up and catch the elbow, but I'm not moving in front of him. I'm going to take his balance through the center first, and then come down in the middle. Okay. A lot of people make the mistake of, relax. They come in and they throw the arm. Stand. Relax your arm, keep your body strong. So they come in like this, and this is how they're trying to do Ikkyo. Okay, because all they're doing is throwing the arm. If he wants to be nice, he'll go down. Yeah, you did Ikkyo. But if he doesn't want to go down, he doesn't have to go down. It's the body. Okay? Ikkyo is about throwing the body. If I'm not taking the body, you good? Yep. Then I'm not going to take a stronger person. I'm only going to take a person my size. So the basic movement, relax this time, looks like this. We go 1, 2. Okay? It's just 1, 2. Make sure you take a full step here and here. This puts him in a weak position. If I shortchange it, very common mistake with beginners in Ikkyo is to shortchange it. Come to here and then here. And now I'm like, why is this not working? Stand up strong. Because he's really strong here, right? Because that's where he has balance strength. But if I go here, he loses that. And then he just tries to stomp on my foot. That's a good kaishi though, I like that. So make sure, so here's off balance point. Draw a triangle. Kazushi point here, where he's off balance, and here. Which means, if I push him towards that off balance point, or pull him towards this off balance point, he's very easy to get off balance. But if I go to the side, right, he's very strong. Now if he gets in the front stance, his Kazushi point changes. Now it's not to the front, but to the 45-degree angle. So what we're doing then, relax, I'm coming in here, and I'm moving around, and I'm drawing his arm all the way to that back point where he doesn't have the strength in his legs to keep his balance. So that's why you go all around to the back. Let's see. Here, going through the center, cutting down here, stepping all the way around. Oh, keeping 1 point. This is 1 point here. It doesn't work if it's here. Stand up. See? If I'm here, now stand up. Right? See, this is 1 point. It's right in front of my dantian. Okay? And we have these 4 basic principles. What are they?
1 point.
Okay.
Relax completely.
Yes.
Way underside, extend. Keep.
Oh, and you did them in the right order too. I'm so proud. Okay, so we have these 4 basic principles we'll talk about from time to time. One of them is keep 1 point. Your 1 point is your dantian. What does that mean? Well, a lot of people tell you a lot of different things. For me, though, it's about keeping everything here in the center, because out here I'm weak, over here I'm weak, over here I'm weak, right here I'm strong. If you've been in the weight room, you understand this concept, because when your hands are to the middle, you're engaging all of your bigger muscle groups, whereas you go off to the side and it turns into mostly shoulder stuff, and that's weak. So keeping 1 point is important. So we'll just go through the basic movement. We'll start off here, grabbing. We're going to go 1 step, hands come up. 2 steps. Step 2, hands come down. Okay? And you can be pretty relaxed at first until you get the hand. You can't sutai me out of Kotegaeshi, okay? Because when the person puts a Kotegaeshi on, you should go to the ground. And so here, when you see a lot of the Kotegaeshis, they're just taking the wrist and coming out like this and cutting the wrist, and then he's just going with it. Because he feels that if I pull him to standstill, if I pull him down and break his wrist, that he's going to die. But he's not.
Yeah.
The reality is, in the street, if someone does this to your hand and you flip over, you did the dumbest thing you could have done, because that hand should have been attacking. And if this hand breaks, you kill him with that one. Understand? So the whole concept of the sacrifice fall in this situation doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but you see it, and I think it's because people who do Aikido think it looks impressive to do this big fall. But it's not real. When we do Kotegaeshi, we apply the force into the shoulder so that his body is moving. I'm not giving him an opportunity to come over. I'm taking him straight to the ground here, so that his shoulder is going straight down. And so that requires a type of directional force here against the shoulder. So let me explain that. First, let me do the big motion. So we start very basic Kotegaeshi. You know what? Let's just do this one. Here. And here. This is going to take very little movement. All you're going to do, cross arm, you're going to come here, pick up the Kotegaeshi here, and then continue on from here. Okay, so let's talk about the details of the Kotegaeshi. So this is what the hand looks like. My thumb is going to be right here between the index, between the ring finger and the pinky finger. My hand is going to wrap around here. Now you do see a lot of times this 2-thumb kind of Kotegaeshi. Right, you guys have seen this in Jiu-Jitsu and some other styles, but I find this to be more efficient, because now I can take my other hand and go over his fingers, or I can take my other hand and give him punches in the face, whatever I need to do. So here, and we take him down like this. Now, the other thing that I see people doing in Kotegaeshi, it's wrist cutting, right? So what do? They just work on the wrist. Just like Aikido is not an arm technique, Kotegaeshi is not a wrist technique. It's a body technique. So I'm not going to cut to the side. I'm going to cut into his shoulder. And so this takes his balance, right? It's different from this. Now this works on a lot of people, but I've trained with several people who were flexible enough that I could take their hand all the way down to here. And they stand here. And they didn't go anywhere. And they wouldn't go anywhere unless they meant to. But if you took that direction and went into their shoulders, it doesn't matter how flexible they are, they're going to go down. Because you're taking the body weight from them. Understand? So this is just like Aikido is about throwing the body, not throwing the arm. Kotegaeshi is throwing the body, not ripping the wrist off. So make sure that your energy is going like a circle into the shoulder. And it's going to help if you take him off balance. So the first thing we do is take him off balance here. So that's the whole technique, right? We grab a temi, and then into here. But we'll start slow. Very important, though, for me, for you to, in my class, for you to learn this directional movement, where you're actually controlling the shoulder and controlling the body rather than just taking the Kotegaeshi and trying to get some kind of wrist movement. Understand? Okay, let's try it. Okay, so we're going to do Nikyo, technique number 2. And it's just going to be very simple grab. I'm going to move to the outside. I'm going to trap. I'm going to come over his wrist like this. And then I'm going to come back. Okay. So here, boom, trap, coming over the wrist and back. Now, this is a technique that you can do it incorrectly on a lot of people and make it work. And by incorrectly, I mean like this. So if I come in like this and I just bring the hand over, if I push it hard enough and he's not very strong in his wrist, I can make him tap. I can make a lot of people tap like that. But it's not the best way. And there are several people that I've trained with who will not tap like that, including me. So what you have to do, the principle of Nikyo is this. We're getting 2 angles of pressure. We're going to compress this joint to the smallest angle, stretching out these tendons as far as we can, and then we're going to add another stretch, okay? And all the nerves are in the tendons and ligaments, so when we stretch out the tendons and ligaments, that's where the pain comes in. This angle needs to be as small as possible in order for me to get the greatest amount of stretch, which means I have to get my hand out of the way so that I can make that angle smaller. If I put my big old hand right here in the middle of that gap, I'm going to keep it from going as small as it can be and therefore give him a little safety net. But if I bring my hand all the way over him and just my wrist is there, now I can come in and I have one bend. Now I'm going to start create the second. And then the tendons and ligaments are just being pulled all out of the direction. So not here, although this can work, but here. Sankyo, number 3 technique. We're just going to move it into it in a very easy way. I can come in and throw an atemi here. I can actually throw my atemi first and then we're going to throw a bonus atemi. Right, and I'm going to control his arm here, pick up the grip of his hand here, slide this hand back. So getting into it, right? Controlling him. I'm not moving in and just trying to catch the wrist here because this elbow is pretty dangerous and I need to control it. I'm moving in, controlling him first, and then I'm grabbing the wrist and pulling out like this. You good?
Good.
Okay.
He's smiling, so he's good.
So I'm moving in here. I can throw the atemi here underneath, which is good. Moving in and creating some control, some leverage here. Right, my shoulder's in the back of his. If he tries to stand up at this point, I still have control over him. Now I'm going to move in here, catch the wrist, catch here, and then shoot back in. Now, how does the Sankyo work? Well, that ain't this, okay? I see a lot of this, and I'll say, use your hips, okay? So, not bad. Some people will tap from this, but some people will not. However, you make the axis small, the axle small, right? And go up into him. It's just spiral up. My fingers are here, thumb is here. You don't actually need these to grab this one if you have a good grip here, and that leaves this hand free for giving him the business, right? But if you really want to get good control, you take the fingers too. Now I can do a couple of different takedowns. I can go up and back, which is pretty rough. I can go down here. And then there's a really nasty one where I go back and just drop him, which I'm not going to do that one either. The normal one we usually do is just down to the front. And this one is a little bit easier. Now, I use Sankyo in real life. I took a person, how did I catch? There was 2 girls in a fight at high school. I took the aggressor, the bigger one, I took her down like this, she went to the ground, I turned her over, I picked her up with Sankyo and picked her up off the ground with Sankyo. So I took her to the ground with Nikyo, or the Kodagaishi, picked her up off the ground with Sankyo and took her out of the room. So this can be a pretty good control technique if the person is controllable, okay? What do we do if the person is not controllable? You take the wrist and you twist it until it breaks, and then you punch as hard as you can and then you go. Okay? That's another thing, like we were talking about with the Nikyo and how much you can hurt someone with it. The Sankyo is the same way. So if I get him here, he's tapping here, right? So what if I go like that? I did that to Sean a couple weeks ago, and he thought I was, he like flinched big time because just the thought of going like that, you know? So if you're in a real dangerous situation and you got to take the guy out, go, boom, take your hips all the way around, hit him as hard as you can, and go. But if you just need to control him, just get him in a control position and say, stop what you're doing. So focus on getting that control and having him in a position where you can do whatever you need to do, whether it's just to hold him here or to finish him, whatever. That's the choice that you have to make just based on the situation. Okay, anyway, try that. This is classic Kokenage. It is not a practical technique. However, it is a very good technique for learning principles that we need to understand to make our self-defense work. When I say it's not practical, you could definitely pull it off. I just don't see pulling off this particular one in this way in too many situations, although when we get into the higher level practice of this, you will be able to use it against punches and things like that. But we start off doing something that will appear to be unrealistic, but we will learn a lot of principles from it, and so that's why we practice it. And this is also Sensei Suenaka's one of his favorite techniques, and O-Sensei did this a lot. So we practice it because if it meant that much to them, it must be something important. And I think that it teaches a lot too. It's just that these are things that we will apply in different ways, not directly to something like this. So when he grabs, I'm just going to move around behind him, right? So I'm not trying to move him. He's going to grab as hard as he can and not let me move him. So I'm not trying to move him. I'm just going to move myself. And that way I can take away his position of strength. And then as I step around, I take his head into my shoulder and take his balance and take control of him using his head. And then I just come in and take him down. Okay? So I'm actually moving around behind him and taking his balance away from him and then controlling his head and putting that into the ground. You see a lot of Aikido styles be relaxed. Where they go here and they go down and then they make a big movement and then they come back up. And I've seen guys who do it that way who can make it work. However, it's very long, and in a fight, 1 second is like a minute. Understand? 2 seconds is an eternity. You ever been in a fight? You know, things slow down and things happen so fast that doing something with a lot of movement is kind of risky. So the more you can make it efficient, the more you can what is that? Make it more efficient. The more you can make it efficient, then obviously the more likely you're going to be able to make it work. So we don't do a lot. We come in, we take his balance, we take his head, we take it to the ground. There's not a lot of extra movement like that, because if I go down with him like this and he decides to lock me up, what am I going to do? I got to change my angle on wrestling. You see that? So we don't go down like that. We just come in and take him time. This is quick. So I'm going to go slow, just be relaxed on this one. One more time, slow and relaxed. It's good to have the palm up because it helps you to break that grip. We're going to step all the way around, bring the hand up here. I'm not grabbing his neck and pulling him. I'm just placing it here for control and using his body to bring him into my shoulder. Now I have control here. I'm going to slip around.